All right, welcome to case study number 8 of the series, so brilliantly titled Kirk's 40 Case Study Closings. I'm your host, Ryan Kirk, and these case studies range from vacant lots to custom luxury homes and total $2,042,081.71 in profits and equity without having to personally go see the property on some. With no cash, no credit of my own, it varies, and I'll explain. And I do it all with Flip Logic and 188 Cash Offer. Now let's get into number 8 of the 40 case studies. That brings us to 8914 Villanova in Los Angeles, California. If you know where LAX is, this is the subdivision just to, if you're looking at LAX from the 405, it's just to the right of it. So it's also known as Westchester. Pretty cool little area there next to Loyola Marymount, LMU. And this property here, the lead type, I mean, it's a vacant property. The seller this was his childhood home. So he grew up here. He's, I don't know, he was probably like in his 60s. Grew up here. Now lives in Ensenada down in Mexico on his ranch and has this house, and it's vacant. I don't know how long it's been vacant, but it was vacant, and he had been trying to sell it for, I don't know, I want to say at least 30, 60 days. He had listed it on the MLS. I think he was trying to get you could just pull it up if you want. I think the listing history was over $1 million. I know that for sure. I want to say like $1,050,000, somewhere in there. $1,050,000, 1.1. Couldn't get it sold, because it was overpriced. And so once it expired, what did he do? He did, I think, like what so many expired lead types do. They go FSBO and they list it themselves to save the commission. So, and then what's interesting about that is because I just had that happen with another lead just recently. It just came on as for sale by owner, and that's because they couldn't get it sold while it was listed. So that may be another good lead type you want to keep your eye on is expireds. So this guy listed it for $1 million for sale by owner. You could duplicate that same lead, just like how we found it, which is if you go to Instant Leads and Flip Logic and you run a for sale by owner search or by owner search, that would have pulled this lead up at that time, and if you would have scanned the Los Angeles market. So he had this listed at $1 million, and from the photo you see there, it was really just cosmetic. The wood floors were beautiful. I think they were newer, or at least they were refinished, but very nice wood floors. And it just needs, the roof had a wave in it, so the roof needed a repair, and the bathrooms needed to be upgraded. The laundry, the kitchen needed to be maybe reconfigured and upgraded, so it definitely needed upgrades as far as all that goes. So it was a cosmetic rehab. Seller's motivation, cash out, just cash. He wanted his cash to buy a replacement property for his daughter, or a place for his daughter to live. The ARV we pegged at about $1,050,000, and the repairs we put at $40 a square foot for this, even though it was just cosmetic, and maybe they got the repairs done for less. Rule of thumb is in these higher ARV, and this is like right there on the cusp, you're at $1 million. So your finishes, cosmetic can be, $20 a square foot here in higher ARV markets. Your middle of the road would be like $25 to $30 a foot. And then your upper end where it needs everything would be closer to $40 a square foot. So we put this at $40 a foot. And then the purchase price that we got it at was $850. The seller said, so let's talk about that for a second. He had it listed FSBO at $1 million, right? The way that we were able to get him down, we always use the law of reciprocity. Hey, Mr. Seller, if we were to, and you can see that on I for the offer terms, if we were to pay all cash, pay all the closing costs, buyer pays all closing costs, and close in 14 days, what's the best price you could do for us? And there was no way he was going to come down to a price off his $1 million that made sense. So he gave us his price at the best he'd be willing to do, and of course we had to hit him for I think it was somewhere close to 800,000, which he was unwilling to do. To which we went back to him and asked, well, what's the best price you can do? If you can't do 800, what can you do? So that's you always want to come back with that response. So he said, and then that's when he opened up and said, well, my goal is to, clear, I think he owed I don't remember how much he owed. He owed a couple $100,000. He had a certain amount he wanted to net so he could make this replacement purchase. And we said, well, how much do you need to net? And he gave us the number. So that number came out to where we could offer, I think it was like 815 or 820 or 825, somewhere in there. So that's where we let him know, well, if we were to come up to 815, is that something you and I can agree upon to, move forward today and open up escrow? To which he said, yes. He said that would work for me. I just need to think it over. And we said, okay, great. Can we call you back maybe in about an hour, 2 hours? Obviously pushing for the close. And he said, sure. When we called back, he was fine with it, except that he wanted us to pay his capital gains costs. And I said, we were willing to pay all closing costs, but capital gains, that's not a closing cost. That's a personal cost to you. And he said, no, I understand that, but I have to incorporate that. I have to take that into account if I want to net what I want to net in order to make the deal work. And I said, I get that, but I said, all right, well, how much would that be? What price do you need in order to make that work? And I think he said it was going to be like 875. Which was too high. So I basically offered to split the difference, and I think that was between 825 and 875, and he agreed, so we ended up at about 850. So that's how that negotiation went down. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think we ended up at 860. So what happened is when we marketed the property to our investors, this property sat in a very kind of funny pocket. You had a recent comparable sale close that set a new height, a new put the bar up at, I think, close to like 1.1, 1.2. But we even got a hold of that investor who was, I think they were waiting on another closing of theirs to free up some capital in order to do this purchase. So the timing on that one didn't work out. So most other investors, they didn't want to base their ARV off that higher comp. They wanted to play it more conservative. They wanted to go a little bit more of a median to an average price. That's why the ARV ended up at about $1,050,000, because the most we could get an investor to agree to was 860, when we were anticipating getting closer to the low nines, and that just didn't work out. So when we thought we had a good deal at 860, it turned out that was the most we were able to get somebody to pay. So we had no money, no wholesale margin in the deal. It was zero, right? We had an 860 purchase price on our contract, and then we had an 860 purchase price on our resale to an investor. So instead of canceling the deal, what we did was, as soon as our investors said, yep, they're willing to move forward, non-contingent at 860, and close by, I forget, it was like we had to extend the date out 3 days. Then that allowed us to be able to go back to the seller and say, all right, Mr. Seller, here's where we're at. The ARV is, what we think we could resell it for after we put in the repair costs It's tough. Yeah, you've got the higher comps there, but that's if you get that, and you'll typically are going to have to do more of a rehab to get to that. You're going to have to go match all those finishes that they did. It's just going to be a higher expense to do that. So really, to make it work, we said, we would need to be close at 800. And he said, and this guy was in construction and very stubborn. So he said, absolutely not. That's a non-starter. Not going to do it. Send me the cancellation, was his response. To which we said, well, here's where we're at. We're willing to move forward, non-contingent, close by, and I think it was like next Friday. Close next Friday. But if you can't do 800, what can you do? Because we can't do 860. Just the cost doesn't quantify the return. It's skinny, and we can't do it. And he said, you know what, let's just cancel. We said, well, why don't you give us a number that we can work with? And he said, you know what, I've got other phone calls coming in on it. I have other interested buyers. I have other offers. I'm not interested in reducing the price. Let's just cancel this and just move on. To which, I said, well, are any of those other offers non-contingent? Are they all contingencies removed? And he said, no. And I said, well, those aren't real offers then, are they? They're going to go through the same due diligence process we did. They're probably going to come to the same conclusion. And you're going to be right back where you are, minus, another month worth of time and maybe more expenses on your carrying costs. So why don't we just come to an agreement here and now and wrap this up and move forward? And he said, no, I'm just not willing to come down. So he was very stubborn on that. So instead of asking him what price would work, then we had to, and we already price tested at 800,000, right? So we price tested, couldn't even get him to, sometimes some sellers will just roll over. They'll say yes. Sometimes they'll split the difference. Sometimes, whether it's half or a third, but you'll get some movement. So this was the most stubborn seller I probably ever dealt with, and this is how it went. So by him saying nope, he's not willing to negotiate anything, we asked him, would you be willing to come down 10,000? Just give us 10,000 to give us enough room to where we can proceed today, non-contingent, and close by next Friday. And he said, I believe, obviously we got him down to 850. So I believe at 10,000, he said he was willing to do it. At first he said, no, not going to do it. We said, again, you're going to go through this same process. You're going to burn a month. You're going to burn more money in carrying costs just to wind back right in the same scenario, same circumstance. So let's just wrap it up here and now. Give us the adjustment that we need, so then you can just finish this and be done with it. And that's when he agreed, and he said, okay, I'll go ahead and do the 10, and let's move forward. So sent him over the addendum. We signed, he signed, and we got it to 850. Our investor got it 860, and we made a $10,000 margin. The funding that we used, we just used an assignment. So we put this under contract, assigned it to a cash buyer. Our buyer closed cash, and that's how this deal went down. So I hope that was a good example. Again, forgot my last slide. So as you know, only about 10% of people watch YouTube videos to the end. If you watch this to the end, that means you're a hustler, you're dedicated, you're persistent, and I know you're going to succeed. So I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to working with you.